Hello, my friends. Today we're learning Bastra, Daf Hayomi. It's a daf that involves lots of calculation. I have here my calculator. If we get stuck, let's go. We're going to start Chavavamud base from the two dots. Omar Ula. Says Ula. Ul ila nasamuch lemeitza. If you have a tree that's close to the border of your neighbor's field, if it's 16 amo close to the border, Gazlan, because your tree is sucking its nutrients from your friend's field. And you can't bring bikurim from this tree. Because to bring bikurim, you say, when you bring the bikurim, it says in the pasuk, Asher tovi ma'artzecha, bikurim from your land. This is not from your land, it's sucking nutrients from the neighbor's land. Says the Gemara. Now, before that, with the obvious question, we learned in the Mishnah that you keep 4 amas away. And here, Ula says 16 amas. So, Tosfos talks about it, and Tosfos says that our Mishnah is talking about whether the rock between the fields, so you can't suck from your friend's field, but you still have to keep 4 amas away because of the machresha. And Ula is talking about where there's no rock, where the roots could go into your friend's field, and then you have an issue that you're gazlin and you can't bring bikurim. Said the Gemara, where did Ula find this thing that he said? So before we start this Mishnah, we're going to explain something. You're not allowed to work your field, you're not allowed to plant, you're not allowed to plow, you're only allowed to do very basic things that your trees are not going to die. Now there's a din that already before Shemitah, on the 6th year, you're not allowed to prepare your field where you normally prepare for the next year. So you're not allowed to plow your field, preparing it for the next year. So, and this depends. So, depends are following, that if it's a field like a wheat field, so already by Pesach, you're not allowed to plow the field. And if it's a tree field, you could go all the way until Rosh Hashanah. So let's see this Mishnah. So the Gemara, where does Ula know his din? 10 small plants, amefuzoris b'toich beisor, that scouted, growing in a beisor, these 10 plants, baby trees, and a beisor is 50 ames on 50, because chotza mishkan is beisor sign, is 2 saw, and it's 50 on 100, so half of that is 50 on 50. So it says in the Mishnah, Chorushim kol beisor b'shvilon, you're allowed to plow the whole beisor for these trees, ad Rosh Hashanah, until the Rosh Hashanah of Shemitah, the whole until the end of the 6th year. So now we're going to calculate kama avaluhu, how much, if we wanted to calculate the square ames that in this field are 50 on 50. So kama avaluhu, trei alofim v'chamesh meo garmidi l'chol chad v'chad. Garmidi a square amma, so 2,500 square amma l'chol chad v'chad. Sorry. Total trei alfim v'chomesh meo garmidi, 2,500 square ames. Very simple calculation. 50 times 50 worth 2,500 square ames. L'kol v'chad v'chad kama motile. If we have 10 trees, so how much is 2,500 divided by 10? Mosan v'chamishin, let's do it, divide by 10. Comes out 250. That means that 250, each tree goes 250 amas long, if we look in square amas. That doesn't work out with Ula. Why? Because Ula said he gives 16 amas from each side. So let's do 16 from each side, that's 32. Let's do 32 times 32, comes out 1,024. That's a lot more than 250. So Ula doesn't not fit in with this Mishnah. Said it more about I'll bring you a ride from a different Mishnah where Ula knows his din from. It says, Shloisha Ilonoi, 3 big trees, Shel Gimel Bnei Adam, that belong to 3 separate people, one to Reuven, one to Shimon, one to Levi. Aryeh mitztarfim v'chorushim kol beisor b'shvilon. Even though that they belong to 3 people, because they on one field, we look at them as if they're one entity, and you could plow the whole beisor for these 3 trees. If one person has 1 tree, and there's no other trees nearby, he's only allowed to plow a much smaller amount, like just underneath the tree and a little more. But because it's 3 trees, we call it a field of trees, even though that belongs to 3 separate entities. And he allowed the whole base, so a whole 50 and 50 for 3 trees, and he allowed to plow the field until Rosh Hashanah. That's the girsa of the Yerushalmi. That's how the Shita Mekubetzes learns. If you look in the Rabbeinu Gershon, he has a different pshat because there's a girsa over here who says until Shavuos it's mutter, and the Chur we learned before about the Netias until Rosh Hashanah. The Rabbeinu Gershon has another pshat. It's a difference. It's a full-grown tree or a small tree, but we're going to go with the Yerushalmi to keep it simple. And the Shita Mekubetzes that learns also in this Mishnah that's until Rosh Hashanah. But that's not really the main point that we are getting at. So we said base off 50 on 50 for 3 trees. Let's work out, says the Gemara, Daf Chav on base. Kama havelu, how much square amis are there? Trey alfi. Behema, 2,500 square amas, as we said, 50 times 50, like before, is 2,500. Garmidi, square amas. Lekol chad kamamoti, to divide 2,500 to 3 trees. Lekol chad kamamoti, comes out kamnemio, 800, vetlasim vetlosa vetilsa, 833.33333, and I'm going to do it on my calculator. 2,500 divided by 3 comes out 833.3333333. So, and Ulla said, with the calculation that we did for Ulla, 30 times by 30, 32 by 32 comes out 1,024. So it doesn't work out. Akati nofish le de Ulla. Ulla says a bigger distance when it says in the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, Teretz loidak, Ulla wasn't medayik to the exact amount, more or less about, from the Mishnah, 833, Ulla said 1,024. Says the Gemara doesn't like that. When do we say we will not medayik exactly l'chumra? If you giving an extra amount, l'chumra, to say we machme more. L'kula loidak mi amrinan, to say a kuladik thing, though we say he wasn't makbid on the numbers, do we say that? And why that? Because what is Ulla's din? Ulla says that in such a tree, if it's 16 amas close to the border of your neighbor, you don't bring bikurim. That's a kula, they don't bring bikurim. If really a smaller amount, you do bring bikurim, let's say 15 amas, you do bring a bikurim. How could Ulla say 16 amas, you don't bring bikurim? At 15 and a half, you don't bring bikurim. It's a kula that, well, he wasn't a dakdek for a kula, you should bring bikurim. It makes no sense. Says the following: when Ulla said you count 16 amas from the tree to each side, no square that comes out 32 by 32. No, it's around. If you have a point in the middle and you count 16 to each side of the tree, you have a circle, not a square. So it's not a square of 32, it's a smaller amount. So the Gemara does the calculation. Let's have a look. When you have a square, that's, let's say 32, any square, but let's say in our case of 32 amas square, and then you want to make a circle, that means that you cut the edges out where it's further away from the middle, more than 16 amas. How much is it smaller? It's a quarter. So, Poshulu Zayin Meo Veshitim V'Tamya. So let's do Ulla's calculation. 32 times 32 comes out 1,024. Times 0.75, it comes out 768, because we said you take a quarter off because it's a circle. So it's 738. So says the Gemara, again, how much is a square bigger than a circle? Ruvia, a quarter. So the Gemara, Poshu Lahu, it comes out Zayin 700, Vishitin and 60, Vitami and 8, like the calculator said. Akati, Poshle Palga, the answer. It's still half an amma wrong. Why? Because it should be 16 and a half each side. And that comes out 16 and a half. Each side comes out 16 and a half plus 16 and a half, because it's from each side, it's 33. Let's do 33 times 33 comes out 1,089 times 0.75, because we want to know how much is 3/4 of that, because it's a circle, not a square. It comes out 816. That's much closer to what we said before, 833. Why did he say 16 and a half? Why did he say 16? He should say 16 and a half. So the Gemara, I need the loy dog. That's what we mean that we said that Ola wasn't medayik because he wasn't medayik. He said a bit of a smaller amount and it's not medayik. Ule chumra loy dog, and it comes out to chumra because in a case where really you don't have to bring bikurim, you're bringing bikurim, but that's the chumra that you have to bring bikurim even though you don't really have to bring bikurim. Tosis asked that some cases it comes out lekula because it patters you from Isis, etc. I am Tosis, but we brought Aryeh now from the Mishnah. Where does Ula know this din? He knows this din from the Mishnah of Shloisha Ilorois, and the calculation of Ula is 32 amas, but not square, a circle, and it comes out very close to the Mishnah, and Ula wasn't medayek le chumrah. So now we know where Ula knows his din. Tzedek Mor Toshma, we can ask a kasha on this. Akoyne Ilon vekarkoi, someone buys a tree together with a land, maybe he brings the bikurim from that tree, and he reads a parsha that it says that you bring when someone brings bikurim. My love, kolshu. Are we not talking about when it says with the land with it, even a small piece of land, and it's a kasha Ola? Ola said you need 16 amas on each side. So the Gemara lo yudvav amma. When we said kolshu, it means to say when we said he bought a tree with a land, it means 16 amma for each side of this tree. Then he brings and he's curried the parsha. So the Gemara another kasha. It says Toshma. We learned someone bought 2 trees from in the field of his friend. Maybe Veina Curry brings bikurim, but he doesn't say the parsha because he doesn't own the land. Hoshloisha. Oh, if he owns 3 trees in his friend's land, maybe bikurim. He brings bikurim and he reads a parsha. My love, are we not talking about kolshu that he has an ownership in the land, even a little ownership, less than 16 amas, and it's like all of that, you may be bikurim less than 60 amas. So the Gemara lo yochenami also over here, it's talking about yidvav amma, when he has 3 trees, he's kind of 16 amma around these trees, and that's why he's maybe bikurim. So the Gemara, Toshma Rabbi Kiva Omer, Rabbi Kiva says, Karko kolshu chayav bepeo bebikurim. A small, tiny little piece of land that you own, you have to leave a little corner, because it's a small piece of land, it's a small corner, payo, that you leave a corner for the anim, will be bikurim, and you have to bring bikurim to Beis HaMikdash. Because you want a prosbul is a way how that Shemitah shouldn't be mafkir the alvor. So that you give over your people owe you money, you give it over to Bezdin, and Bezdin will goive it for you. And the only way it works if you have only if you have a piece of land. And what size of piece of land? Says Rabbi Akiva, even kolshu. Continues the Gemara of Zayin Amud Beis. V'niknim imo nechosim she'eno im achrayis. There's a din that you could do a kinyan agav. That if I'm makne someone a piece of land, I could be makne im agav that metaltelim. So how big does a piece of land have to be? Kolshu, even a tiny piece of land. So we could see over here a kolshu piece of land. You have to bring bikurim, and Ola said only 16 amma around the tree. So the Gemara, it's a piece of land that has on it wheat. And what do you bring bikurim from Shivas Aminim? And one of the 2 Shivas Aminim chitim asorim. So if you have chitim, they don't have big roots. So even if it's a tiny piece of land with chitim on, you could bring bikurim. If it would be a tree, you need a much bigger piece of land. Says the Gemara, Deikinami, I'll bring you Aryeh. The Ketoni Kolshu, it says even a tiny piece of land. On a tiny piece of land, can you have a tree? It doesn't make sense. A tree is big, especially a tree with fruit. Elamai must be talking about, we're not talking about fruit, we're talking about wheat. And wheat could be one tiny little piece of land with 1 corn of wheat. Shmamino. So we do have a kasha from Yon Ula. Toshma, come and listen. It says, Ilon Mutzosu Ba'er, it's a tree that's partly in Eretz Yisrael, and Mutzosu B'chul, and partly not in Eretz Yisrael. Teven B'chulin Muruvim Zeh B'zeh Divrei Rebbe. Rebbe says, you have a mixture of Tevel, what's chayev, Trumas and Maisus in Eretz Yisrael, and Chulin, because what's in Chutz La'aretz is not chayev Truma Maisus. You have a mixture of Tevel and Chulin. Rab Shimon Gamliel Oimer Agodel B'chiyuv chayev, the part that's growing in the side that's Eretz Yisrael is chayev Trumas and Maisus. Agodel B'ptur, the apple that's growing outside the border of Eretz Yisrael, potter, it's not chayev Trumas and Maisus. Says the Gemara, Ad kaloi pligi, until here there's no machloikes elo de ma'asova yesh berera. Rab Shimon Gamliel says yesh berera, and we assume that the fruit that's growing on the side of Chutz La'aretz is sucking from the roots they're going into Chutz La'aretz. Umasov, and therefore, and the part in Eretz Yisrael from Eretz Yisrael, Umasov, Rebbe argues and says ain't berera, and we don't know if this apple is sucking from the roots in Eretz Yisrael or from Chutz La'aretz. That's a machloikes. Aval godel b'pturu, if all the roots and the tree were in Chutz La'aretz, Divra Kol Potter. That's it. You're Potter. You're not chayav b'trumas maestros. Why is that? It's a kasha because the tree sucks 16 ames. So if it's on the border of Eretz Yisrael, we should say it's sucking from Eretz Yisrael and should be chayav b'trumas maestros. Said the Gemara. The postik tzulma. It's talking about that in this area of the border between Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz is the big rock, and therefore the roots can't suck from the other place. It could only suck from, if it's in Chutz La'aretz, only from Chutz La'aretz. If it's in Eretz Yisrael, from Eretz Yisrael, and therefore they're not sucking the 16 amas that we were talking about. Says the Gemara, Yochi, if so, that is the rock that's separating the border between Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz, my time of the Rebbe. What's the time of Rebbe? If there's a tree and some roots only in Eretz Yisrael, some roots only in Chutz La'aretz, L'chora Reb Shimon Gamliel is right. The apples on this side on Eretz Yisrael should be chayav trumas oraisis, and the other side the pot from trumas oraisis. Why does the Rebbe say that it's a mixture? So the Gemara, the Hadri Arvi, that at the top, very good on the roots is the separation of a rock, and some roots are here and some roots are here, but on the tree on top, all together, and it connects between those two roots. So we don't know if this apple, even though that's on the side of Chutz La'aretz, maybe it's sucking from the roots on the other side than Eretz Yisrael, and that's why we have an issue, and it's Tevel and Chulin that are mixed together. What's a machloikes? Because the air connects the two roots, we don't know if this apple grew from Eretz Yisrael or from Chutz La'aretz, and that's why it's Tevel and Chulim Merovim Vebezeu. Ma'asavar Reb Shimon Gamliel holds Eile Chudei Koi v'Eile Chudei Koi, that the apples down this side of the rock then Chutz La'aretz suck from the roots and Chutz La'aretz, and the apples on the other side of the rock in Eretz Yisrael suck from the roots in Eretz Yisrael, and that's why it's Chayav Trumas U'Maisos on that part. Said the Gemara, V'Sheish Esrei Amo V'Tuloi. Rav Ulla said, yeah, it sucks 16 amas. Is that all what the roots of the tree go 16 amma distance and no more? But now we have a first Mishnah that we learned before on Daf Hayomi base. When you plant a tree in your field and your friend has a borrow of water in his field, you have to keep away how much? 25 amas, and the reason is because the roots go and damage a borrow. We can see the roots go much more than 16 amma. For sure, the roots go more than 16 amma. Until 16 amma, they make the land weak, and that's why Ulla says if it's in closer than 16 amma to the border, they're weakening your friend's field and they're taking nutrients from there, and therefore you are gazdin, and therefore you can't bring bikurim. But again, so mezel tu ve'azli, they go more than 16 amos. But the nutrients that they take and they weaken the land only 16 amo. Tfei, more than 16 amo, even though that the roots continue, they don't weaken the land, and that's why even if my roots are continuing into my friend's field, if I kept 16 amos away, it's not ruining his land, it's not making his land weak, and therefore I'm not gazlan, and I can bring bikurim. Said the Gemara, Ki Oser Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came, Omar, he said, Boy minei Rish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan, Rish Lakish asked the Shaila to Rabbi Yochanan, Ilon asamuch lameitza. What's the din if you have a tree that's close to the border, less than 16 amma? What's the din? Amalei, so Rabbi Yochanan told you, Shlokish Gazlan, who is a Gazlan, you can't bring bikurim from it. Ki also Rabin, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabin came, he said a different thing from Rabbi Yochanan. Doesn't matter a tree that's literally on the border of your friend, even a tree that the whole tree is growing in your friend's field, the whole top of the tree, maybe Bikurim, you could bring from those fruit and read the parasha of Bikurim, and even though that's taking from your friend's field. Why is that? When Yeshua gave the land to the Jews, he said, made at night that they won't be makpid on that and say, oh, you're taking from my land, you're making this trees coming from your land, and Yagazla. No, Yeshua gave the land al dasat, that even though that my tree is taking nutrients from my friend's field, I could still take Bikurim and bring it to Yerushalayim and read the parasha. Tzedek Gemara. Tzedek Mishnah. Ilon shonoyti lesodech haverei. I have a tree that's going into my friend's field on the top, not underneath the ground. So it disturbs my friend. He's allowed to be koitzet, to cut miloy amardea al gabe amachreisha. So when a person would have those amachreisha, those 2 cows or a cow with a plow, and someone would lead it, and it'd have a big stick to hit the cows to make it go. So that stick is the mardea. And so if I have a tree, if I'm going and trying to get the cow to move and the stick gets stuck in the tree of my friend that's coming from his field, it's a problem. So I'm allowed to cut this tree all the way that it won't stop my stick to hit the cow to get him going. On carob tree and a sycamore tree that has a very big tree, there you measure differently. There, because it's a big tree and it causes that the sun shouldn't come into your friend's field, and it's going to ruin the field. Therefore, you could measure Meloya Meshkoilis. Meloya Meshkoilis is when like builders they want to see a straight line for wall. So I don't know if you guys seen, they hang a string and the bottom has a weight, and then they know that it's a straight line. So you could do a straight line from your border all the way up and cut all the trees of your neighbor down that's coming into your field, if it's a sycamore or carob tree. Continue the Mishnah. Beis hashlochim, when we talk about a field that person has to water with his hand and doesn't have water in it naturally, kol ha'ilon, any type of tree, keneged hamishkoilis, doesn't matter what type of tree, the person could cut it on a straight line. Abba Shaul argues, and he says, kol ilon sra keneged hamishkoilis, every type of barren tree that doesn't have fruit, you can cut it on a straight line more than the Maratzeh. Let's see in the Mishnah, the Gemara is going to straight to explain on what Abba Shaul argues. Iboilo says the Bnei Yeshiva had the Shaila, Abba Shaul Reisha Koi. He's going on the Reisha that we said in the Reisha that you could cut the tree only the height of the stick of the Mardea. And comes Abba Shaul and says, if it's a barren tree, you can cut all the way up like a sycamore tree. Oya Seifa Koi. Or maybe he's going on a sefer when we said in the sefer that bebeis hashlochim, every tree, and lechora, if he's going the reisha, he says that he can cut it. We said you can't cut only k'moreh there. He says you can cut it on a straight line. Or a sefer koi that it says a beis hashlochim where you water it with your hands, you could cut keneged hamishkoilis, and comes Abba Shaul and says that's Keneged hamishkoilis, that's by a barren tree. But if it's a fruit tree, only k'moreh there, even in beis hashlochim. So the Gemara Toshma Kaman listed the Tanya to the Brayso beis hashlochim. What's the din? Abba Shaul oimer kol ha'ilon, any type of tree keneged hamishkoilis. Why? Mipnei shatzel, because the shadow that this tree brings, rale beis hashlochim, causes damage to such a type of field. Shma mino Aryeh koi. Shma mino, clear raya from the Brayso. It says clearly that in a beis hashlochim, every type of tree you can cut in a straight line. So it can't be that he said that just a barren tree you can cut in a straight line. So it must be, where was he arguing about Abba Shaul? On the Reisha, where it says that we said he could only cut kimloya maradea, and he says Abba Shaul, that's only by a fruit tree. But if it's a barren tree, you can cut in a straight line. Omar Avashi, Masisim Nami Teika, bring the Aryeh from our Mishnah itself, Aryeh that he's choilik on the Reisha. The Ktoni, Kol Ilon Strak. Abba Shaul says, every barren tree, if Abba Shaul's arguing that we said in the Reisha that you could only cut K'moreh Madeh, and Abba Shaul says every barren tree you could cut a straight line. It makes sense to say they say no, not K'moreh Madeh. Every tree you could cut on a straight line, and not like K'moreh Madeh if it doesn't bring fruit. It makes sense. The Lashon Kol is coming to include not only a chorov and a shikma, also any tree that doesn't bring fruit. Elo Yermata Sefer, if Abba Shaul is going on the Sefer that says that beis hashlochim you can cut on a straight line, and he says that's only on a barren tree, koi, if he's going Yermata Sefer koi, ilan strak mi boile, Abba Shaul should say no, only ilan strak you can cut on a straight line, not kol ilon strak. It's not coming to include, it's coming to exclude. Elolav, what do we see from here? Shma Mino, Aryeh Koi Shma Mino. We can see from the Mishnah itself that Bashol was arguing on the Reish that we said he could only cut a barren, only a chor of a shikma, like a straight line. Comes up, Bashol says, no, Koli Lemstrak, any barren tree, you can cut a straight line on the border. It says the last Mishnah in Perek Lo Yach for Ilon Shom Noitil Rishus Rabim, a tree that is going into Rishus Rabim, Koitzet, he cuts, that the camel could go past easily together with the rider on top of the camel. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, a different measurement, Gamol ton pishton a zmoris, a camel loaded with flax or with piles of zmoris. And we're going to see in the Gemara what's a higher measurement. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Kol ha'ilon keneged ha'mishkoiles mipnei tumah. Rabbi Shimon argues and he says you cut the tree on a straight line that shouldn't bring tumah, because if the tree is going to go into Rosh Hashanah, it's going to be like oil, and if there's tumah over here and I'm walking over here, I'll become tumah, and therefore you cut the tree in a straight line on the border of the person that his tree is going into Rosh Hashanah. And the Gemara is going to discuss a bit more about the tumah thing. Now, if anyone's been to London and he goes on a double-decker bus, he'll see that the trees over there cut literally a few inches on top of the height of the double-decker bus. And you can understand, it makes, when you go over there, it's easier to understand this more exactly like the height that the first shit is of like the height of a camel, and a rider is like nowadays a double-decker bus type of thing. Says the Gemara, Man tana de benuzokin bossa umdino de ashtar linen. Now Mishnah, it says that you cut it on top of the height of the rider on top of a camel. So that means I'll cut it a little bit, and then a month later it's going to grow again. It needs to be cut again. And we don't say, oh, let's just cut it all off. So we say, we estimate what you need to cut off now, and we don't look at the future. Omar Ashlokish, says Ashlokish, but Machloikish, no, yeah, it's a Machloikis about it, and our mission is like one shitta. Rebbe Lovi, and if it's our Mishnah only fits in like Rebbe Eliezer. Etnan, we learned in the Mishnah, Ein oisim cholol tachas Rosh Hashanah. If someone has a property and he wants to dig a tunnel to his property on the other side of Rosh Hashanah, with a road in between, or he just wants to extend his basement under Rosh Hashanah, so you're not allowed to do a hollow place under Rosh Hashanah, because if Rosh Hashanah could fall in. Not Boris, not Tzichin, Morris, none of that. You're not allowed to dig under Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Eliezer said it's mutter. You have to take precaution. If you did a tunnel underneath Rosh Hashanah or a hollow place, and on top of that area you have a carriage going full of heavy stones and it won't fall in, it's okay because it's strong and you're allowed to build a tunnel. All the in the future, maybe the worms are going to eat a bit into the land and it's going to get weaker and it's going to fall in. We don't choshesh. Now it's strong, it's good. So therefore our Mishnah holds like Rabbi Eliezer, that we say now it's good, we don't look at the future. But it doesn't fit in like Rabbanon, that's all Rish Lakish says. Rabbi Yochanan Omar, afilu temer Rabbanon, no, our Mishnah could also fit in Rabbanon. Hosom zimnim lemachfchis v'lo adate. Over there, when you're building a hollow place underneath Rosh Hashanah, maybe it gets weak and you don't know about it. No one knows about it. The worms are eating into the land that's hollow over there. And suddenly someone's going to go to Rosh Hashanah and it's going to fall in and it's going to collapse in that hole. Aval hocha, but over here where it's visual, kama kokaitzle. Whenever you see a branch that's disturbing you to go when you're going over camel, you just cut that branch off, no problem. So it's different from the case over there, and therefore our Mishnah could fit in like Rabbanon. Rabbi Yehuda Omer gamol ton pishton or chavile zmoris. You look at a camel loaded with flax or piles of zmoris, if I'm not mistaken, or pieces of a grape tree that's cut. The trees are called zmoris, the branches. Who's a bigger shir? Is it Rabbanon's is a taller amount or Rabbi Yehuda? Telling more pshita, it's obvious the shir of the Rabbanon nofish. The shir of Rabbanon of a camel with a rider is more than the shir of Rabbi Yehuda. If you're going to tell me that Rabbi Yehuda is a higher amount in height, Rabbanon b'shir of Rabbi Yehuda, how if Rabbi Yehuda, a camel with a load is higher than a camel with someone riding a camel, and Lefi Rabbanon you only cut until the height of a camel on a rider. What happens if you have a camel with a load on that's higher? How are you going to go past? You're going to get stuck. Something more of Elomai. So what are you going to tell me? Shirudu Rabbanon Ofish, a camel with a rider is higher than a camel with a load. Rabbi Yehuda b'Shirudu Rabbanon Mai Ovid. How Lefi Rabbi Yehuda that his shear is less than Rabbanon? How will a guy who's riding a camel that's higher than Rabbi Yehuda's shear go past? You're not allowed to cut such a height. So the Gemara no, Efsha the Gochin b'Cholif Tutei. He could bend down and go, because it's a rider who has sense. He could bend down and go underneath and get underneath where it's a bit low. But the opposite you can't say, because it's a load. You can't make the load go suddenly down. So it comes out Rabbanon is a higher shear than Rabbi Yehuda's shear. So the Gemara we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon Kola Ilon. You could cut the whole tree keneged mishkoilis on a straight line, like when you measure with a weight because of the tumah. Tana, it says in the Brisa, because we're choishes that there'll be a piece of the mace over here, and someone's going to go underneath the tree, and someone's going to go 5 meters away underneath the same tree, and it's going to become tomeh. So the Gemara, Pshita, obviously, what do we need this Brisa for? It says clearly in the Mishnah of tumah. So the Gemara, if we only have the Mishnah, I might have thought Aryeh of Tumah v'Shodi. Maybe the chashash of Tumah is a different chashash. A raven is going to take a piece of Tumah, and the Shodi also, and he's going to leave the piece of Tumah on the branches, and it's going to stay on the branches, and someone's going to go underneath it, and he's going to go underneath it, and the tumah is going to be on top of him, and it's going to become tomeh. Vesagir, and therefore it's enough. But the chlulei be'alma, we're going to go over Rashi's pshat, to cut the branches in a way that nothing could sit in the branches. If the branches are very close together, a piece of tumah could sit on it. But if you cut a branch, yes, a branch, no, a branch, yes, a branch, no, a tumah can't sit on a branch. It's going to fall straight off, so there's no chashash. Kamash Malon, the chiddush of the Brisa is that that's not the chashash. The chashash is that there's a tumah on the ground, and someone's going to go on the ground 2 meters away, but underneath the same branch, and it's going to become tomeh from that piece of tumah, let's say kazayis hameis, because oil of tumah. Hadron aloch le'achfor, Emetz Hashem will come back to Perek le'achfor, learn it again, and remember it, and we came all the halachos in it, and be zoiche to remember it, and to teach it, and to be zoicha to understand all the depthness of it. Thank you very much. Looking forward to learning with you again. Have a good night.